Calls Detective Mickey Keenan to the stand. Please state your name for the court.
Good afternoon. My name is Mickey Keenan.
What do you do for a living?
Well, I'm the undercover investigative officer for the Midland State Police Department. That being said, I tend to specialize in doing undercover drug ring operations, and it's been a relief working on this case because it's a little safer behind the desk than you are at a drug ring.
Well, how exactly are you involved in this case?
Well, in June of 2013, Chief Kimball assigned me to investigate the Midlands Gambling Commission for any possible signs of corruption. So, of course, I began my investigation there and was signed on specifically in Chase Covington's office as a staffer.
Were you conducting this investigation alone?
For a time, I was. Bear in mind, this investigation lasted about a year and a half. But in those final couple of months, once those casinos rolled in, specifically from Avery Bancroft's office, I was able to recruit Corey Hyde, Avery Bancroft's executive assistant, who aided in this case as my informant.
Now, did you ever meet with Avery Bancroft in person?
Yes, I did. I met with Miss Bancroft on 3 occasions, as a matter of fact.
When was the first meeting?
Well, that first meeting with Miss Bancroft and Corey Hyde was on March 31st of 2015. And that was just a pretty simple meeting, nothing too big. They just pitched their proposal to me and I was supposed to pass it on to Covington.
Well, did Chase Covington and Avery Bancroft ever meet?
Yes, they did. That was set up for April 13th, 2015, just a few days before the vote. And that was a much more formal meeting. That was Avery Bancroft's chance to pitch her casino directly to Mr. Covington.
Now, Detective Keenan, at any point, did you see Avery Bancroft offer something to Chase Covington?
Yes, I did. I passed a napkin over to Miss Bancroft and said, "It's all about the money." And then Miss Bancroft wrote on that napkin and passed it over to Mr. Covington.
Let the record reflect I'm approaching opposing counsel and witness in turn with what's marked State's Exhibit 1. Would Your Honor like a courtesy copy? Detective Keenan, what have I just handed you?
This is a picture of the napkin that I was just referring to.
Is this a fair and accurate copy of the napkin you saw on April 13th?
Yes, it is.
And who wrote on this napkin?
Avery Bancroft wrote on this napkin.
Your Honor, at this time I move to admit State's Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Objections? Yes, Your Honor, I object to hearsay.
Your Honor, this is hearsay, but it falls under an exception to hearsay under Rule 804. Now, Rule 804 provides that the statements of unavailable witnesses can be admissible under certain circumstances. Now, you have in front of you a pretrial order from Judge Watt ordering the severability of today's trials and specifically ordering that the interrogation of Avery Bancroft is inadmissible. Now, the grounds for rendering the interrogation admissible are that Avery Bancroft is not available to be cross-examined on that interrogation. So the order clearly states that Avery Bancroft is unavailable to testify or be cross-examined in today's trial. This means that under Rule 804A5, there are no procedural or reasonably available means available to the prosecution which would allow us to obtain Ms. Bancroft's testimony. Ms. Bancroft is unavailable. Now, this opens up the 804B exceptions to hearsay, specifically 804B3, statements against interest. Now, this is a statement by Avery Bancroft that says yes equals $250,000. And we know that the sole topic of discussion, the sole purpose of this meeting was to discuss Chase Covington's vote on the upcoming casino proposals. So we know that yes refers to the vote on the proposal. So this is an offer of some form of financial compensation in return for the vote of a public official. This is something that would tend to expose Avery Bancroft to criminal liability. And thus, under Rule 804B3, is a statement that's against Avery Bancroft's interest and is admissible.
Your response? Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, for this to be allowed, it has to meet one of these prongs, and it does not meet any of the prongs. Specifically, cannot be present or testify at the trial or hearing because of death or then existing infirmity, physical illness or mental illness. None of that has actually been laid out. It should not be allowed here in court today.
So if I understood you correctly, you're going under 804.
804A5 for unavailability, Your Honor.
So is your argument that Bancroft is not absent from the trial and is...
Ms. Bancroft is absent from the trial, but not for any of these reasons.
Okay, so you would have to be saying that under 804A5 that there was a way that the prosecution could have had Bancroft, could have procured Bancroft or her testimony for today. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, Your
What, I mean, what's your argument then, I guess, how could they have done that
Honor.
pursuant to this order of the court severing the trials and talking about the Crawford problem?
The alleged bribe involves two people. They chose to prosecute Chase Covington. They had Avery Bancroft as a witness. They had Avery Bancroft as a witness to corroborate this.
But, I mean,
But Avery Bancroft is not here today because of any of these reasons.
well, isn't Avery Bancroft not here because of this court order?
I believe so.
Okay, well, what was the prosecution supposed to do about that?
I withdraw my objection.
Admit it?
Detective, what did Avery Bancroft write on this napkin?
Well, Avery Bancroft wrote, yes equals $250,000, and then passed that napkin over to Mr. Covington.
And how did Chase Covington react upon seeing that?
Well, he took the napkin, put it in his left breast pocket, stood up, and walked out. That was it. Meeting was over. Didn't even say a thing.
Permission to approach the witness, retrieve evidence?
Granted?
And would Your Honor like the identified copy?
No.
And was Avery Bancroft the only person submitting a bid for a casino?
No, there was another casino proposal that was submitted. It was submitted by Shannon Stock and J.C. Longstreet.
And did Chase Covington ever indicate which way he was going to vote?
Mr. Covington always inclined to me, especially in a couple of emails that we exchanged, that he was inclined to vote for Shannon Stock's proposal.
Let the record reflect on approaching opposing counsel and the witness in turn will put the marked States Exhibit 2. And would Your Honor like a courtesy copy?
Sure.
What are you holding there, Detective?
This is an email that I received from Chase Covington on April 13th at 5:07 p.m.
Is this a fair and accurate copy of the email you received that day?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, this time I move to admit States Exhibit 2 into evidence.
Objections?
No objections, Your
Okay,
Now, what did Chase Covington say in this email?
Well, Chase Covington says directly, I'm going to need lots of convincing in the next couple of days before I can be comfortable doing something.
And when did he say that?
Mr. Covington said this at 5:07 p.m. on April 13th, 2015. That's just about an hour and a half or so after the major meeting we had where Bancroft pitched her casino to Covington.
Let the record reflect on approaching witness to retrieve States Exhibit 2. And you said that there was a third meeting. When did that take place?
Well, it was supposed to take place on April 16th, 2015. Corey Hyde was there, Avery Bancroft was there, I was there, and Mr. Covington was supposed to be there, but he never showed up.
Did you see Chase Covington at all that day?
I did not see Mr. Covington in person that day. However, I did later, through an acquiring of some security footage, No, that Chase Covington entered the VIP room of the Black Bear Casino on April 16th.
Now, what time did Mr. Covington enter the Black Bear VIP room?
Well, Avery Bancroft walked into the VIP room around 2:05 with a briefcase, and then Chase Covington walked into the VIP room also with a briefcase at 2:15, and they left at 2:30, both holding briefcases.
Did you ever find any evidence that Chase Covington received a large sum of money around that time?
I did receive some more security footage of Mr. Covington making a large cash deposit at his bank. From then on, I actually went on to acquire a bank statement from the month of April, and I also did a review of Chase Covington's financial disclosure form.
Let the record reflect on approaching opposing counsel in the witness in turn with State's Exhibits 3 and 4. Would Your Honor like courtesy copies? No. What's this first document you're looking at here?
Well, this first document is a financial disclosure form for Chase Covington, and there is a certificate of authenticity attached to that.
At this time, Your Honor, I move to admit State's Exhibit 3 into evidence. Objections?
No objection, Judge.
Now, could you explain how a financial disclosure form works?
Well, it's for anyone who's a public official. It's their chance to disclose their assets, their liabilities, any gifts they might receive, things of that nature.
And could you specifically explain the assets section on Chase Covington's form?
Yes. Now, the assets section is where the big numbers go. That's where your bank accounts go, your housing value, anything like that. But it works on a minimum and a maximum basis. Since everything is fluctuating so much, they're not going to ask you to have an exact amount. They simply ask that you say how much your account never exceeded this amount. For Chase Covington, he's testifying that his account never went above $300,000 on this form, and never went below $115,000.
And what's the second document you acquired?
The second document that I'm holding here is a bank statement for the month of April for Chase Covington, and there is a certificate of authenticity on the back.
Is that a fair and accurate copy of the document you received in response to your subpoena?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, I move to admit State's Exhibit 4 into evidence.
Objections? No objection, Judge.
Are there any large cash deposits on this statement?
Yes, there are some large deposits. The largest of which is a cash deposit for $200,000.
Now, what was the balance of Chase Covington's account right after that deposit was made?
The balance after that deposit is $338,319.25, well above what he disclosed on his financial disclosure form.
And what was the date of that undisclosed cash deposit?
That was April 17th, 2015, the very same day that Chase Covington voted for Avery Bancroft's casino.
Your Honor, I have no further questions for the witness at this time. Permission to approach the witness and view evidence.
Great.